Alright guys, today we are gonna be reacting to Trace of Berlin Wall 60 years on. A look at the history of the Berlin Wall. Jumping guys.
The world, this used to be the symbol for the Cold War and the separation of Germany in East and West, the Berlin Wall. Construction on it started on August 13th of 1961. That's exactly 60 years ago. That's why this time I'm in Berlin. Even though the wall has now been consigned to history, there are still remnants of it scattered around town. Today I'll show you where to find them
That's
and
gorgeous,
the stories
man.
they tell.
For 28 years, the wall divided Berlin. It kept families and friends apart and brought great suffering upon the people. There was heavy surveillance and many escape attempts from east to west ended tragically. There were 8 border crossings between East and West Berlin. One of them was this one, Bösebrücke.
On November 9th of 1989, the day the wall came down, this border crossing at Bornholmer Straße was the first to open, and the news spread like wildfire. In just 1 hour, 20,000 people crossed from East Berlin to the West.
Wow.
Legally, that is. And to this day, this is one of the greatest moments in German history.
This commemorative stone was built out of an original piece of the wall. And the wall trail has thoroughly transformed the area.
Today, this is a paradise for cyclists or nature lovers, but until 1989, this was the death strip, a no man's land between East and West Berlin.
The wall was 155 kilometers long and enclosed West Berlin. So I have a lot to cover, but I won't be doing it on foot. You can find these kinds of scooters on every corner nowadays. You just need an app.
And off we go.
My first stop is Brandenburg Gate. It's definitely Berlin's most famous monument and a symbol for freedom. During the Cold War, it was right behind the border in the Soviet sector of the city. Pariser Platz is today a popular spot for tourists from around the world, but back in the day, it was off limits to the public. It's difficult to imagine, but up until 32 years ago, there were surveillance towers and tank traps here. With an app called Mau AR, you can see exactly where the wall used to run.
Just one day later, the first wall was built.
Oh wow.
Accompany us through decades of division.
Damn. That's a very cool app. Very cool. Just give you a different perspective when it comes down to these kind of experiences, right? Just a little bit. It's very hard to just go to the past and relive it, right? But that, unless you lived it yourself. But if you never, like me, I'm a millennial. You know. I'm sorry, I have no idea what kind of. How would this will feel, right? Like, I have no idea, but that will help.
Moving on to Potsdamer Platz,
At
a
least have some kind
lively
of empathy.
transportation hub with skyscrapers, hotels, office buildings, and restaurants. When Germany was divided, this was actually the broadest stretch of the death strip. Almost all buildings in the militarized zone were torn down. And here too, you can find remnants of the wall.
And this is arguably the most famous remaining part of the Berlin Wall, the East Side Gallery.
And the longest, 1.3 kilometers run along the River Spree. After the wall came down, 118 artists from 21 countries painted the eastern side of the wall. The most famous works are the Trabant crashing through the wall and the fraternal kiss between Leonid Brezhnev and Erich Honecker. Not far from here, the Oberbaum Bridge crosses the Spree. Back in the day, it was the only way to get from Kreuzberg in the west to Friedrichshain in the east. Next stop, Checkpoint Charlie, the most famous border crossing. Here I meet Susanne Mühle of the Berlin Wall Memorial.
From this picture, you can see how huge this border crossing was. It stretched over 2 blocks and had various check-in stations, yet the Allies' guardhouse always retained its provisional form, light frame construction made from wood or later a metal container.
Lots of symbolism and lots of irony. The only thing remaining here today is a replica of this provisional Allied control booth.
That's crazy, man.
The GDR's massive border complex is long gone. Why is Checkpoint Charlie so famous? Why has everybody who comes to Berlin heard of it?
Checkpoint Charlie became famous due to an event that took place here 60 years ago. In October 1961, American and Soviet tanks faced off here during the hottest phase of the Cold War. Those images went around the world and made this place famous, and that fame has lasted to this day.
There are a lot of tourists around. It's a huge attraction. It's named in every Berlin guide. But there are
Yo, the
critical
Cold
voices.
War was crazy, man. The fact that we never started that. I think Europeans got tired of war for a minute, right? They didn't want to start anything crazy, yeah.
Too, alleging that it has become a sort of Disneyland, that it has little to do with the history of the place. How do you feel about that?
Sure, the snack bars and souvenir shops we see here are the downside of the big draw this place has on tourists. Luckily, there are also attractions dealing with its history, an open-air gallery on a construction fence, and the Black Box Cold War exhibition, though they were all designed as temporary attractions until there was something permanent. But this temporary state has lasted 10 years, so something really must happen here now.
Are there any plans that you believe are aiming in the right direction?
A development plan has been approved. This plan stipulates there should be 2 open spaces, and that one can be used to construct a museum.
Located in the heart of the capital, the Berlin Wall Memorial is the main place of remembrance of Germany's former division. The construction of the wall devastated the lives of many and left its mark on Bernauer Straße, traces of which are still visible today. Here you can see the last remaining section of the border installations in its spatial depth, complete with a wall, watchtower, and death strip. At the Wall Memorial's Documentation Center, visitors can learn about the political and historical events that led to the building of the wall, its eventual fall, and German reunification. Bernauer Straße saw plenty of escape attempts. The group Berliner Unterwelten, or Berlin Underworld, organizes thematic tours.
Bernauer Straße and both sidewalks were entirely in the French sector, but the border ran along the edge of the building, the property line. When the wall went up on August the 13th, the East German police came and locked the building doors from the inside, so residents could only enter their properties through the properties behind them. They breached the courtyard walls.
West Berlin was so close, but suddenly unreachable. The resulting desperation
So a building literally would just divide the 2 sides, really? Golly.
led many to jump out of their windows. The escape of 77-year-old Frieda Schulze was especially dramatic.
The Stasi broke down her door. When she wanted to jump, they tried to pull her back into her flat. But these 2 students down below valiantly jumped up, grabbed her legs and pulled till she fell into the life net of the Berlin Fire Department.
Through the basement of an old brewery, we reached the reconstruction of a very elaborate escape tunnel. They had fresh air supply, electricity cables, and phone lines. This little cart allowed the tunnel builders to bring out the debris. With the help of the escape facilitators from back in the day, the people here also tried building a tunnel themselves. Of around 70 projects, only 19 were successful.
Wow.
This is really impressive. And just imagining that you had people crossing with all their belongings and a child or their children is really incredible.
Most tunnels led from west to east and ran as deep as possible, so the communist intelligence wouldn't be able to detect them with their acoustic tracking devices.
Bam.
What did people do with the debris? It must have been hard to hide.
The earth had to be stored in the cellar where they did the digging. What were at first large cellar rooms were in the end just narrow pathways. They dumped the earth behind wooden walls which reached the ceiling. It was a real cat and mouse game between the Stasi, border guards and the escape helpers. Sometimes one side won, sometimes the other.
But not all the tunnels here are replicas.
That's the original escape tunnel.
My last stop is Mauerpark,
Man,
while
man,
elsewhere
it just makes you think. Really put you in a perspective of thinking. Golly, man.
the course of the death strip can hardly be followed, here it can still be clearly traced in the elongated shape of the park. I'm meeting Chris Charlesworth. Back in the 80s, she lived in West Berlin. She moved back to her native UK and returned to Berlin in 2013. Now she's part of the Friends of Mauerpark Association.
What makes this place, Mauerpark, so special to you?
In a word, the transformation that's happened here, I just think it's incredible. The Germans called it the death strip. It was the space between the two walls. Between those two walls was everything about death. It was, attack dogs and armed guards patrolling, and it was about keeping people apart. It was just awful. The first time I came into this place, I couldn't believe it. I didn't actually realise it had been landscaped into a park. I was just amazed, so I instantly started to research about, is there anybody who takes care of the place? What is the place? And I found the Friends of Mauerpark.
What do the Friends of Mauerpark do?
We try and look after not just the trees, we look after the trees as well, to some extent, and the playgrounds, but we also try and preserve that spirit of the place, and that excites me so much. This place is now everything that it wasn't before. Instead of being about separating people, keeping them apart, about death, it's about bringing people together.
Graffiti, man. That's Berlin, right? Just the effing graffiti, man. I might be too old school for this, but I just don't like the graffiti. It's just messed up with the aesthetics of the place.
It's about life, and I just love that.
That's the only thing, guys.
And as you can see, that feeling is shared by many others.
Gorgeous park, man. Look at that. It's very earthy kind of feel.
For 28 years.
Great place to be. But then, do not put graffiti, guys. That is gonna really mess up your area, man. Don't do that. Have some respect. Berlin's such a great place, but they damn graffiti, man. There's still graffiti's over here on the top. It's a beautiful place, man. But oh god, man, there we go. Those tunnels, man, might be haunted. Might be haunted, guys. Cannot believe it, man. Some families, they really went through it, man. They really did. They really did. May rest in peace. But very good. I'm glad that Germany got reunified. Oh my god. And they managed to just move forward so quick and so nice. Like, it's almost a miracle. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I would love to hear you guys' opinion. I'll see you next one.